mouth, and then they did an MRI and found that it had very significant soft tissue opacity within the left tympanic bulla, and so its ear canal was also very stenotic, and so the recommendation by the dermatologist was to go ahead and do a total ear canal ablation. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel, make sure you turn on notifications so you'll get a ding in your phone the next time you live stream. So the challenge here is that this is a French bulldog, and so a lot of these dogs, their bulla is quite deep, and so it can make it quite challenging to get to what you... Do you want to move your stool down? It can make it quite challenging to get into the bulla because it's quite medial. Can you pull up that pinna and then push down on the nuts and bone? Just push that right down in there and lift up a little bit so that helps out there. So we make our initial vertical incision here, and we will probably have to go through the parotid salivary gland. Just get the retractor in here. I have a new microphone system. You guys will have to let me know what you think. So it's a new microphone, so it's an ambient microphone, condenser mic. So you probably are going to be able to hear me, but also the whole room. So we'll try this one, and if it doesn't work, I can always go back on the next surgery to the original microphone. So you are going to be able to hear everything going on in the room because it is a condenser microphone and it's quite sensitive. So again, vertical part of the incision. I'll get down to probably the auricular nerve, not the facial nerve, but the auricular nerve, which we have to transect when we're doing this vertical part of the incision. And for you guys that are watching on Vet Dojo, I'm probably going to stop streaming on Vet Dojo and go exclusively to Vetalign. So just make sure that, and I don't know, that might be 6 months from now, but I am transitioning over to just Vetalign. So just make sure that you have subscribed to Vetalign as well, and that's at Vetalign on the YouTube channel. Okay, so we're down to the vertical ear canal. Removing a bit of that muscle. Alright, so now we can remove that scissor. And then we'll just try to spread the ear out like that. Get some of that chlorhexidine. Question about whether I've ever done a ventral bulla osteotomy in a dog. If I have, it's probably only once. I can't recall, but I do recall that it is very challenging because you have a lot more anatomy in the way than you do in a cat. So, very good question, particularly in this case, because there is minimal external ear canal disease. All of the disease is in the middle ear. So if it was easy to do a ventral bulla osteotomy, that would have been the way to go, particularly because this is a Frenchie. But it's actually really hard to get to the bulla from the ventral aspect in dogs because there's a lot of big stuff in the way. I like to say big structures with short names. medicine is going to be easier on the approach because of the lack of external ear canal disease, but once we get deep, because it's a fence, it's going to be hard. Because of the medial position. So the dog has already substantially improved. The dog is substantially improved on antibiotics. Calcification here of this cartilage. So you can see how Cindy is really manipulating that pinna in the ear canal to maximize my exposure. Really helpful to have an experienced assistant when you're doing these. Coming around the last little bit caudally. Can't stand the sight of blood. Get towel clamp around the back here. I think part of the problem with the microphone is that my head is facing down because I'm doing the surgery, and the microphone is kind of facing from the camera toward the kind of the room and the operating field, and so you're going to get my voice, but you're also going to get a lot of other stuff as well. And for those of you that are return watchers, you'll know I usually use electric cautery until I get down to the junction between the vertical and horizontal ear canal, and then in order to avoid damaging the facial nerve, I'll start using very discrete electric cautery. Just pinpoint electric cautery rather than using it to dissect like I'm doing right now. And the key to avoid facial nerve palsy, it's been shown in one big study done at the Animal Medical Center by Dave Matisse and Tom Scavelli, that the key to avoiding facial nerve palsy is to stay right on that cartilage. Careful even with the placement of the gelpies to keep from putting too much traction on the facial nerve. So now I'm just trying to make sure that I'm staying right on that auricular cartilage of my dissection. And basically just working concentrically around the ear canal, just going in kind of a spiral pattern all the way down until I get to the opening to the bulla. Very careful to stay right on that ear canal. You alright?
Oh no, you just took it.
Did we move it?
I don't know, just a little bit up and down. It's okay.
Yeah, I think it might have gotten done. Aaron, can you read that question to me about the revision surgery?
Yes, so I'm about to perform a revision surgery for a cervical salivary mucus seal, although I have done many primary cases, but since this is the first time for a revision, so can I get some insight or tips?
Yeah, so the question, I don't know if you guys could hear that, although given the new microphone you probably could, was that somebody has posted that they're doing their first revision on a cervical mucocele, and by revision I assume that means that we've continued to accumulate saliva despite the fact that the salivary gland was removed, and my assumption has to be that that probably either the entire gland wasn't taken out, or the wrong side was done, or it was a bilateral mucocele. So if you're having continued accumulation of saliva and the entire salivary gland was removed, that means that that it could have been the wrong side, or it could have been bilateral. And bilateral is pretty rare, so I would assume, when I've had this happen before, was that I took out the wrong side. So I did not take out the gland that was actually leaking. So you can, if it's definitely come back just on the side that was operated on previously, I guess it's possible that some salivary gland, enough was left in there that it's continuing to leak. I haven't had that happen before, and so again my assumption would be that either it was bilateral or the wrong side was operated on previously. There is no problem with removing the other side as well, you won't get xerostomia, meaning you won't get a dry mouth, because there is enough of to make up for it. And so I think probably what's going to happen is you're just going to have to remove the contralateral gland. So we're getting into facial nerve territory right down in here. I have it now. I would love to have better retraction, but is in deeper because of the risk to retraction on the facial nerve. This is exactly, right back here caudally is exactly where the facial nerve is going to be sitting. Risk of facial nerve palsy is about 50% temporary and about 10% permanent. And I have definitely seen both temporary and permanent palsy in my cases. I'm just trying to be as careful as I can back here to stay on the ear canal. Quite a deep hole here. I think I can feel the bulla down there. So this is the area right in here. But if I'm going to ding the facial nerve, this is where it's going to be. Been dissecting in here in other cases and not seeing anything concerning, and then when I cut the ear canal off, I'm looking at a cross section of the facial nerve, which is obviously distressing. So you can feel the skull down here, so it's not terribly medial. This little bit is just very adhered. To the canal. Cranially, or rostrally, which is rostral of the canal, we have the risk of getting the retroauricular vein. So it really is a bit of a minefield on the way in here. there. That's the facial nerve back there, I think. Very calcified. It's actually just yeah, these are, I'll need new ones anyway. And I'm always trying to cut caudal to rostral to avoid getting that facial nerve. Facial nerve back there. So now I'm just going to use the clear elevator to try to expose the ventral bulla. Once I expose the ventral bulla, I'll get in. I think I've done. I might have to get back to those. See, that's the opening to the ear compared to the bulla right there. Just be careful because the facial nerve's right back there. Be really careful going too far rostral so I can get that auricular. Sorry. I'm just trying to get straight in to try to find the opening to the bulla. Let's just get an osteotome and see that my clear elevator is just into the opening of the bullet. Go ahead and give that a good tap. Yep. 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 So basically I'm just trying to take the caudal margin of the bullet out so that I can then reach in with my curette. So I've got that caudal bullet. As it goes, it's probably getting better sound effects. Okay, so this is all just nasty cholesteatoma. Look at all that shmoo in there. Okay. Just disgusting in a very appealing way. Look at that disgusting stuff there. Can you guys see that? More. Be careful about not going too far dorsal because I don't want to get the vestibular apparatus either. Not a trick. And I've got to make sure that I'm getting anything out because if I don't, I'm getting abscess. Very exciting bit out here. Look at that nastiness. here with his recovery on a French bulldog that has airway disease as well. He already had a thorax surgery done previously, but it's perfect. Yeah, so the primary surgeon only removing the mandibular gland and monostomatic portion of sublingual. There certainly could be more material left there on the ipsilateral side, but I would still be very aware of the possibility that it could be the contralateral. Yeah, go ahead and stick this right down first. Right down deep in the hole.
Yeah,
I'll
just
get it
the-
tonight.
Yeah, get it tonight. You can charge at 7 o'clock.
Yeah. Can do.
That's the big piece of bola that I wanted out. Very aggressive about moving forward. Possibly more aggressive than some. I can't recall a case that I thought, oh, I took out too much bola. I guess I've had some bleed before, but that wasn't really too much. That was from just going too far raw shoulder. Big chunk up there that I have missed. And I'm really worried that if I had left that in there, that would have become an abscess. Just get a little bit more. Can we go ahead and flush?
Yeah. Just flush now.
Yeah. Get some 2O PDS. This is a very deep hole. Some bupivacaine, please. And can you get some smaller needle burrs? These have two of the big ones. Yes.
Yes.
What is the weight?
17.7.
What is the Need help for calculation? Yeah.
What do we do? 2?
Yeah, I can do 2. Sorry, I have
2
a...
times 17.7 divided by 6.8.
6.8, sure, we'll just live.
There's a study that was done by Chad Devitt et al. In Colorado that showed that the only benefit, or the only effect of putting in a drain was longer hospital. This didn't reduce the number of infections or anything, so we basically, I think pretty much everyone I know has stopped putting drains in.
Small one, we'll try that here. Try and use the plain one.
Erin, is there a way to check to see who packed this pack just so that they know about the needle drivers that we want? Not a big deal if it's too much of a hassle, but just to
Yeah, that's fine.
try to standardize the instruments that go in each pack. So I'm trying to make this into a T-shaped incision. just doing a superficial sub-Q here. And then we'll just wrap it up with intradermal. And also, well, in the horizontal part of the incision, you have to do kind of an intradermal to the, basically to that cartilage. Some 301. Just pull that loop tight. Yep. Alright. So I'm going to hand over to Cindy and she's going to close. Alright, so if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. Make sure you turn on